As Formula One heads into its fourth round of the season, the spotlight shifts dramatically to the sun-scorched landscapes of Bahrain. This desert setting, steeped in racing history, becomes once again the stage for drama, strategy, and innovation. After witnessing the whispers of potential during pre-season testing at this very venue, we return to the Bahrain International Circuit under a whole new set of conditions: warmer, more intense, and far less predictable. Unlike the uncharacteristically cool climate that teams contended with during testing, this weekend promises sweltering track temperatures that could alter everything we thought we knew. So, what exactly should we expect from the circuit's behavior, and more importantly, what technical upgrades will be under the microscope? All eyes will undoubtedly turn to Ferrari, a team teetering on the edge of a breakthrough. With a significant upgrade to their floor scheduled for debut, the Scuderia hopes to finally extract the raw pace hinted at during simulation runs and the earlier shakedown sessions. That said, it's worth remembering that pre-season testing offered only a distorted picture. Temperatures back then were abnormally low, which could have masked or exaggerated car behavior. Now, with more realistic heat levels and proper race conditions, teams will get a clearer read on their packages. The desert circuit presents a unique combination of variables. Tire degradation will play a central role, with the coarse, aging asphalt delivering high levels of grip but also proving punishing on rubber. The surface hasn't been resurfaced in years, and that abrasiveness remains a major talking point. Particularly during the lengthy braking zones that define much of the lap, the demands on the tires will be relentless. Strategists will be pushed to their limits, orchestrating tire stints like chess masters anticipating every counter-move. While excessive wear or graining is not expected to dominate headlines, thermal degradation, where the tires overheat and lose grip, could be a silent killer, especially under the scorching Middle Eastern sun. On the technical side, lateral loads will be moderate, rated around 3 out of 5, but braking forces will approach 4, making this track a real test for both the car and the driver. Adding another layer of complexity is the ever-present threat of desert sand sweeping across the circuit. The grip might be excellent at times, but any sudden gust could throw a wrench into lap times and tire performance. Track evolution will also be something to watch. As rubber gets laid down through the sessions, grip levels will climb, but unevenly. Teams that can predict and adapt to this shift will be at a clear advantage. Then there's the weather itself. Last Sunday's trackside temperatures barely touched 20 degrees Celsius, but forecasts suggest that the upcoming weekend will push readings closer to 30 degrees Celsius. That 10-degree swing may not seem massive on paper, but in F1, it could be the difference between success and chaos. One team, however, seems largely immune to such concerns: McLaren. Their 2025 Challenger has proven versatile and adaptive across a wide range of conditions. Yet despite this recent ascendancy, there's one thing McLaren hasn't managed: winning the Bahrain Grand Prix. Ironically, Bahrain has become something of a spiritual home race for them, now that the Bahrain-based investment group Mumtalakat has fully taken over ownership of the McLaren Group, including a controlling stake in the F1 team. Team principal Andrea Stella has referred to this GP as McLaren's second home race, and for good reason. But can they finally lift the curse and claim a long-awaited victory here? In theory, with arguably the most complete and competitive car on the grid, expectations should be high. But the reality is far from straightforward. The team's Suzuka performance was a wake-up call. Even with a dominant car, the challenge of taking down Max Verstappen in the RB21 remains colossal. Red Bull's late resurgence in Japan reminded everyone that the reigning champions are still very much alive and dangerous. McLaren must now prove that their success isn't circumstantial. They must overcome not only Verstappen but also the weight of history and the pressure of expectations from stakeholders back home. The challenge is magnified by the presence of the well-funded sovereign investors behind the team, who undoubtedly expect results to match their ambitions. Stella, when asked about the team's trajectory heading into Bahrain, offered a sober assessment. He pointed out that Verstappen isn't invincible, noting that he can't always make the difference against the rest of the field. The key, according to Stella, is consistency. The most important factor in chasing both championships, he explained, is having the best car on average. When we can't win, we must at least finish on the podium. If we can maintain this performance over the long term, the rewards will come. In Bahrain, McLaren doesn't just face a race, they face a reckoning. Can they deliver under pressure, in front of their new majority stakeholders, on a track that has haunted them year after year? Or will Red Bull once again slam the door shut on any hopes of a power shift? Either way, the desert awaits. And it's not here to play nice. Right now, there's no denying it. Max Verstappen is the man making the difference. In a grid filled with elite machinery and razor-thin margins, it's his sheer talent and composure under pressure that has kept Red Bull in the spotlight, even as the competition tightens around them. However, sustaining that level of dominance over the grueling span of a 24-race calendar is another story entirely. No matter how skilled the driver, if the machinery underneath isn't consistently the best on the grid, keeping that edge becomes a monumental task. This upcoming race in Bahrain marks a critical juncture, not just for the championship as a whole, but for Verstappen's own trajectory. It will be his first real chance to reclaim the top spot in the Drivers' Championship. After dominating for much of the last 2 seasons, Max's incredible streak, once the longest ever recorded in Formula One history, came to a surprising end at the final round of 2024. Now, in 2025, he finds himself trailing Lando Norris by the slimmest of margins. Just a single point separates the 2 title contenders. And yet, in spite of Red Bull's roller coaster form, Verstappen remains the cornerstone of their entire campaign. All 61 points the team has scored so far this season have come from him alone. That statistic, while impressive, also paints a worrisome picture. Red Bull's reliance on Max's brilliance is now more glaring than ever. As we approach the Bahrain Grand Prix, the narrative becomes even more nuanced. Lando Norris, speaking ahead of the race, has pointed out something rather telling. He believes that Bahrain's layout, particularly its abundance of low-speed corners, could swing the pendulum back in Red Bull's favor. The British driver, whose McLaren machine has thrived in high-speed sequences, acknowledged that the team will be moving into more uncomfortable territory this weekend. Our main weakness compared to Red Bull, Norris said, has been the low-speed stuff. Bahrain doesn't have many of the fast, sweeping corners where we've shined recently. Instead, we're heading into a circuit that exposes our vulnerabilities. He elaborated further, admitting that both he and teammate Oscar Piastri had squeezed nearly everything out of their McLaren during qualifying sessions. Still, the theoretical lap time gap between them and Verstappen wasn't as vast as some might think. That detail underlined the precision with which Max is operating this year. He's doing a phenomenal job, Norris added. Red Bull looks like they've found a bit of their rhythm again. But Verstappen isn't the only story unfolding in the desert. Ferrari is also preparing for a pivotal moment in their season, a chance to turn potential into tangible results. The SF25, their current challenger, impressed many during pre-season testing and in simulator data, but so far, those promising signs haven't translated into concrete race day performances. Something seems to be missing, a crucial link in the chain preventing them from unlocking the true pace that, on paper, appears to be there. Team principal Fred Vasseur has not shied away from addressing the team's rocky start. He's acknowledged that the opening rounds have been below expectations, but insists that from Bahrain onward, we might begin to see the version of Ferrari that fans and pundits have been hoping for. The Bahrain GP will serve as the debut stage for a much-anticipated floor upgrade, an evolution that could finally shift the balance of power in their favor. After what many consider a disappointing drop in form post-Chinese Grand Prix sprint, the Maranello-based squad is desperate for redemption. Bahrain offers the first real shot at reversing their downward trajectory. The pressure is immense. Not only are they racing to keep pace with Red Bull and McLaren, they're also fighting to prove that their project hasn't stagnated. The new floor is said to address airflow inconsistencies and is designed to improve corner entry stability, an area where the SF25 has been lagging behind. If successful, this could catapult Ferrari back into contention, not just for podiums, but for victories. However, there's a sense of urgency beneath the surface. Ferrari's slow start has raised concerns among insiders and fans alike. The optimism that surrounded them in February is beginning to fade, replaced by the uncomfortable question: have they once again overpromised and underdelivered? Bahrain, then, becomes more than just the fourth round of the championship. For Verstappen, it's the stage where he could reassert his dominance and reclaim the narrative. For Norris and McLaren, it's a test of adaptability and a chance to prove their rise isn't circuit-dependent. And for Ferrari, it's a crossroads. Either they demonstrate meaningful progress, or they risk being written off before the season even hits full stride. The desert doesn't forget. It exposes the weaknesses of the unprepared and amplifies the strengths of the bold. As the engines fire up and the tension builds, one thing is certain: Bahrain isn't just another race. It's a battleground where reputations will be tested, alliances will be scrutinized, and the 2025 championship will take a decisive turn, one way or another. When reflecting on his team's chances in Bahrain, as well as the underwhelming start to their 2025 campaign, Ferrari's technical figurehead BER opened up with candid insight into the ongoing battle every F1 squad faces when chasing performance in the ground effect era. "We all want to run the car as low to the ground as possible," he admitted. "Everyone knows that's where the aerodynamic magic happens. Closer to the floor, more downforce, more grip. But of course, there's a catch. There's always a limit. You push too far and the car bottoms out. You flirt with the edge of the regulations. And suddenly, your perfect setup turns into a disaster." BER continued by emphasizing that this isn't just a Ferrari issue, it's a universal dilemma across the paddock. Every weekend is about chasing that razor-thin margin. Finding how low we can go before we lose control. Run it too low, and you're in trouble. Keep it too high, and you're wasting potential. It's the same problem for everyone, and we've all known for the past 2 seasons that performance is heavily, almost obsessively, tied to ride height. It's not new. But it's never been more critical than now. However, beyond the general technical headaches shared by the grid, there's a storm brewing within Ferrari itself, a rift, according to well-connected Italian outlet La Gazzetta dello Sport, that centers around whether their upcoming floor upgrade should even be introduced this weekend in Bahrain. On one side of the internal debate, the aerodynamics department appears optimistic. They are reportedly confident that this new floor design represents a significant leap forward, a necessary step in the right direction. But not everyone within the Scuderia shares that confidence. Both team principal Fred Vasseur and senior engineer Sarah, according to the reports, have voiced hesitation. Their position? It might be wiser to delay the upgrade until the team has a firmer grip on the SF25's current balance and baseline behavior. This new floor isn't just a standalone development. It's part one of a more comprehensive aerodynamic overhaul scheduled to roll out fully by the Miami Grand Prix, 2 rounds from now. Vasseur and Sarah argue that without a stable, consistent car balance, evaluating the effectiveness of a partially implemented upgrade might actually cause more confusion than progress. Meanwhile, amid Ferrari's internal wrangling, Lewis Hamilton is approaching the Bahrain GP with cautious hope after what he described as a frustrating start to his final season with Mercedes. Following a disappointing outing in Suzuka, the 7-time world champion offered a sobering yet determined perspective. "I'm pleased that we've made a bit of progress, even if it doesn't feel like a lot on paper," he said. "Hopefully, we'll start seeing some proper improvements at the next race." Hamilton highlighted that during the first 3 rounds, something specific has been consistently missing from his side of the garage. "There's been a small gap, just a piece of the puzzle that isn't working right on my car. And that makes a difference. With what I had, I extracted the maximum. But now we've got to dig deeper, solve those little issues, and get the car to where we need it." He went on to say that it's not just about reacting to what the rivals are doing, it's about anticipating the development war. "We'll need to keep an eye on when the others bring upgrades. That's going to be crucial. We've got a lot of ground to cover if we're going to close the gap. And realistically, I think it might take another 3 or 4 races before we're properly in the fight. But that's the target. And while the spotlight often drifts toward Red Bull and McLaren, perhaps it's time the F1 world pays closer attention to Mercedes. Despite the low expectations following their struggle to adapt to ground effect regulations since 2022, the Silver Arrows are quietly staging a resurgence. In fact, Mercedes has accumulated 75 points across the first 3 races of 2025, their best opening run since the regulation shift began. Statistically, they are now second in the Constructors' standings and have established themselves, at least for now, as the second fastest team behind McLaren. Toto Wolff, always a realist, isn't getting carried away just yet. Speaking ahead of the Bahrain Grand Prix, the Mercedes boss acknowledged that this race would be a critical benchmark for their car, the W16. "Bahrain is going to put us to the test," he admitted. "It's one of those tracks that can either validate your progress or brutally expose your weaknesses." He emphasized several challenges. It's a rear-limited circuit with a rough surface and usually high track temperatures. That combination is brutal on tires. "Last year, we really struggled here. So now, with all the changes we've made, this race will be a clear indicator of whether we've actually moved forward, or if we've just been lucky at the first few events." As rain also looms in the forecast, yet another variable might be thrown into the equation. "Weather could be a factor," Wolff added. "And in this sport, that's the kind of unpredictability that separates teams who are prepared from those who are still finding their footing." With all that in mind, the big question remains: what narrative will define this year's Bahrain Grand Prix? Will it be the story of Verstappen's resurgence and a potential reclaiming of his throne? Will it be McLaren consolidating their early season dominance? Could Ferrari finally silence the doubters and unleash the true potential of the SF25? Or will Mercedes, quiet, consistent, and under the radar, suddenly emerge as a serious threat? We want to hear your take. What do you think will be the key talking point once the lights go out in Bahrain? Drop your predictions in the comments below. And once you do, don't forget to click on the video that's showing on your screen right now. There's plenty more where this came from.